got our. That's really what I get you. They want to get you both done.
Yeah.
And then hopefully by.
We went over.
They have like what's called the data. And I got like basically people can roll examples on it. A lot of people be like, oh, download this, this. When I switched, I started out being I literally spent like 3 days. Yeah. I literally spent like 3 hours yeah. So,
Hey Ryan, I just no, it's fine. I just emailed you a link. So I just emailed you a link. So try it.
What do you need?
I just emailed you a link. So try it and see whether you
Email or DM?
email.
Like for me, like the learning curves.
As I was on my computer.
yeah.
Yeah.
But to do a basic line graph,
Stream, try this.
you can knock one out.
Yeah.
And then pitching me like the ideas of what we're gonna do in the workshop. I was like, let me just make sure that this doesn't take so long. I was like, it should be about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing is.
Is it live right now?
Should be.
Well, because it's funny because like the thing.
Because I'm like, oh, it's not.
The thing that I did was like the most complicated one. Like, at the end of it, like I'm really glad I did it because I couldn't have stuff. And I was like, I like the other version.
So let me
It's just simpler because like the one that.
let me send that to Andy.
It's like at the end of the day, it's
So
like,
she can get in there.
Yeah, let me see. Is there
And then
any
she
way
should
to-
just be able to respond to people in the comments.
I think that's a good point. Is that like a lot of times you have to be careful not to have too much.
Yeah.
You could hear it,
And I
right?
think that I
What?
kind of-
You could hear it.
I could, yeah. I walked over there and I
So
could.
I was talking about that, I think,
Okay, do you guys need any help getting anything up there? Are you?
What's that?
Are you okay projector
I'll
wise?
leave you guys alone.
Are you hooked up?
Are you hooked up? Yes?
I'm hooked up to the HDMI, yeah.
Okay, is it not?
I don't know,
Do it.
I
I did. Yeah. I saw Lynn came here. Lynn?
Yeah. Yeah, open those, turn and then say. You guys don't L. It's fun for you to.
No, she can't.
Can't?
No, I talked to her. I actually talked to her this morning. I wrote like this 2,300 word article yesterday on Dylan Larkin, like what the optimal contract should be. I heard from my my little hockey drafts insider friend, codename for Shannon. I heard that the hockey draft Slack was a buzz reaction. Because my argument in my article was that it made a lot more sense to do a 3-year.
The second U is in home. The second U is in
Because the
home.
chances that he's going to go into a top center, which is 6.3 million, which is Matt Bean's.
Am I still having?
No, I changed it.
You know,
Oh, come on. I was all set to embrace
And,
absolutely.
I mean, like,
you know, and if you look at the
let's
list,
say you're a writer.
the only ones on the list, the only ones in the list that you're like, oh, maybe, it's like William Carlson, obviously, you know, who knows what he's gonna do. But like, I mean, almost everybody on the list, I'm like, they're better than Bill Walton. You know, and they're probably better than he's going to be. You know, so it was one of those things where I went into doing the article expecting to advocate for a long-term deal. And at the end of it, I was like, I completely changed my mind.
That's every article I did.
Do I?
That's every article I read.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna have this great opinion, and then by the end, I was like, I don't think this anymore.
Like, I don't think it's gonna be like as bad as the applicator deal, but I mean, that's almost like kind of saying it's, you know, the sandwich is not gonna be bad as eating the pile.
It won't be as bad as the blue cheese deal. It won't be as bad as the price deal. It won't be.
All right, Matt, so we're good to go?
Yes, we are good to go.
Just
Trying to get the
Yeah,
trying to figure out
You wanna-
about the what the right way to view it is. That's the only thing I'm trying to figure out. Just put
Well,
the-
let me know when you want me to share it.
Okay. Okay, because yeah, I'll probably need. Let's see. So I might have to go up one.
Well, we're looking forward to letting you down.
It's a great start then. Low expectation.
It's just the, dress rehearsal for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Judy,
Hi.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Welcome.
Yes. Hey, hey, Russ.
Hi.
I'm not helping.
You came last year.
Yeah. It's cool though.
Should remember the conference attendees.
I didn't say nice to meet you. I said good to see you.
Yeah, but then you introduce yourself like you hadn't met him.
Sure.
All right, you want to tweet us out then?
Just having a focusing issue.
Okay.
So, okay.
There we go.
Yes.
That answers that question. Keep this with me for those who want to-
Has someone been in communication with Andy?
Is she?
Andy's on the stream.
She's on the street, she's
Okay.
gonna answer questions, people.
Okay, I just have to talk to her, I just want to make.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
She
she's
asked
good.
her questions and I got.
Tweeting things.
Okay, I think you can go now.
Hang on one second. Oops.
And you guys, you use microphones?
I have one in my back.
You got one ready? Do you have one?
Hello.
All right, so I just tweeted out, so let's do it like a couple minutes and then we'll get started.
Yeah, that's it. Just that way, at least it's a better chance of it getting picked up.
Yeah, everyone go retweet it from my Twitter account stream, so everybody sees it 100 times. Or 8. What?
I just asked Luke if I should do it or he should.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, do it twice. Do it, then undo it, then redo it again. You guys don't have a secret burner account for one of
No, actually, we don't have any burner account.
you?
How many people believe that? No, yeah.
I'm still waiting for the big reveal in our talk tomorrow that it's a triplet.
Yeah, Manny will pop out.
Yeah.
That makes you guys a salad.
According to Andy, there's gonna be a third any day, just by mitosis, right? Like,
Any day now.
All right, should we get going? Take it away, boys.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today to our presentation on graphing with Tableau by me, Navarro, CJ Todoro, is that right?
Yeah.
And Andy Grow, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but she will be on the YouTube stream answering questions from people. So, to get started, just a little overview of what we'll be going through today. Here's some more introduction about us. I work at McKesson Corporation as an operations intelligence analyst. I also run the site Barlow Analytics that covers tutorials for stuff like Tableau, Python, some R. And then CJ
Yeah, I'm a writer for All About the Jersey. That's the SB Nation Devils affiliate. And as far as what I do in normal life, I'm a high school teacher for math and things like that.
And Andy is a writer for BSN Denver, covering the Avs. I believe she's an architect. She'll probably correct me in the stream if that is incorrect. Okay, so let's go over our goals here today. First, we're just going to familiarize yourself with Tableau's layout. Talk about a little bit how Tableau interprets the data. It's a little different than maybe you're familiar with Excel or R. And then we'll go over how we can manipulate some data in Tableau, do some similar stuff that you would do in Excel or R. And then we'll just create some basic charts, bar chart, scatter plot, line graph, maybe some extras if we have some extra time. So a little bit about Tableau. It's what's called a business intelligence platform. It's just kind of a fancy word for a way to present data to your customers or within your business, basically graphs. It uses a drag and drop interface to create these visuals. There's not a whole lot of typing. You just kind of pull the data as you need it to where it needs to go. It does have a free version, which is the reason I use it, and I like it, and I'm using it still today. It also, one of the advantages is it allows you to manipulate your graphs in real time. Like, so as you move your data around, you can see how your graph changes. Wow. If you were doing something in R, Python, you would have to rerun the script again or something similar. And probably the best feature is that Tableau hosts everything that you do publicly, which allows you to share whatever you do with anybody free of charge. It's one of my favorite features, easy way to spread your research, spread your data, allow people to play around with your data without any overhead or any hassles.
Quickly about that, since as a blogger, which is primarily how I contribute to the hockey community in any way, Tableau has been really useful because, first of all, among other things, as Matt said, it hosts it for you, which means you can actually embed it. So anything that allows for something like HTML, you can actually put that straight into your article. So your readers, your users, whatever, they don't need to navigate even to a different website. They can right there on your article in real time see what would happen if they changed which player you're visualizing or which time interval you're viewing or which type of stat you want to see. So it's been really helpful from the blog end of it type of thing, because it's really intuitive for your readers in that respect too.
Okay, so really I'm only going to talk about one thing before we get into work on Tableau, and this is how Tableau views your data. There's two main fields, dimensions and measures. And dimensions, the best way to think about it is how you want to slice your data. Usually this is categorical, but it can also be continuous. But it's the buckets you want to put your data in that you display to your viewers. And the measures are the actual values that go in those buckets. So when I first started, I would just kind of think of measures as continuous and dimensions as discrete. And that's a good rule of thumb, but it's not the whole picture and can lead to some confusion. So if you just kind of think of dimensions as how you want to slice up, divide your data, and measures that values you want to show for each slices, then your work with Tableau will be a lot easier.
Yeah, and at the bottom of each of the lists, it's a little bit cut off right here, but you would see at the bottom of dimensions, you would see something called measure names. At the bottom of measures, you would see something called measure values. And that's another good way of thinking about it. The measures are going to tell you the numbers that you're going to be displaying, and the dimensions are going to tell you the name of what those numbers represent.
Yep. So, yeah, pretty much covers just what I was talking about. Okay, so if you haven't downloaded the data, this is the link to get it. So you can just type that in, it should be an automatic download. Pause for a couple minutes if anyone on the thread doesn't have it.
I'm going to have another link that when I visualize mine, will have a different place that you can download that from, but I also have it as a URL. If not, it'll be available online.
Okay, let's make some graphs. Okay, so if you've opened Tableau, this will be the first screen that you come to. So I'll talk a little bit about what's going on here. If you've made older graphs, they'll show up here, and you can just open those up. As you can see, I've been playing around with some of these, and we'll get to those later. The main, more important part is this connect here. This is how you pull your data into the program. You can, as you can see, there's multiple files that you can use. You can use a PDF, you can use a JSON, you can pull in an Excel, you can even pull in SQL queries, and other stuff like that. Right now, we're going to work with text files. These are going to be CSVs. So if you have downloaded the data from the link, you should open it up, and there should be a file called EWGAR from 2007 to 2018. This is the Evolving Wild Twins goals above replacement data that they kindly said I could use for this, so I took them a moment. Okay, so once you've opened it, this is our next most important screen, or before we get to where we make the graphs. This is where you pull in the data. It's going to tell you how Tableau is interpreting the data and whether it's decided it's a dimension or a measure. So as you can see here, position, since it sees numerals, it automatically assumes it's a measure. But since it's just kind of a binary 1 or 2, we're going to convert that to a string. And then that should automatically convert it to a dimension. So if you missed that, so I clicked on this little ABC here, went down, changed it to string, and that was it. So once we get that done, you're going to go down here, you're going to click on New Worksheet. That's going to be your bread and butter. That's where you're going to work mainly in Tableau. These are kind of like the building blocks of what your dashboards are going to be. And then it brings us to this screen. So here's where we're going to work. As you can see, that we have our dimensions that we saw earlier, and then we have our measures. I'm looking for you. Do you see it?
I think it's a measure called season.
Season, yes. I am blind. Thank you. So with this one, we're going to build a line graph plotting the war value by season. So first, we'll grab season and we'll drag it to our columns here. And as you can see, it's laid out all the seasons of the data. And then we are going to take our war value here, drag it to the rows. And so Tableau automatically works with the data that you're giving it. Like it thinks this should be a bar graph, so it turns it into a bar graph. But you don't have to do that, so we're going to change it to a line. And as you can see, we have a line here of all the seasons. But this is just basically the sum of every season, of every player in every season. So it's not really telling us too much. So we need to add in one of those measures, or excuse me, dimensions to kind of filter it. And so what we'll do for that is we'll pull player into the filters here. We'll go over to select from list, and as you can see, it shows all the players. Right now, we'll just leave them all checked. You could uncheck them as you wanted to. Go for now, we'll leave them all checked. And we will hit OK. So now we got our filter there. But right now, it's not really doing anything. We haven't set it up to where we can actually filter the data ourselves. To do that, you're going to click on this arrow right here, and then go down and hit show filter. So that shows it on the right here. So we can see, as I scroll up and down, all the player names. For me personally, I like to do a drop down, but if you had smaller values, you could do it like this. And as you can see, you can uncheck and check. It's not really affecting the data that much. The values are so big. So what we'll do is we'll go down to this little right click right here, and we'll go down to drop down. Then we can select the players we want. So we'll go with Aaron Ward. As you can see, 2007, 2008, he had a 0.6 WAR. In 2009, negative 0.3, and then 2010, a negative 1.3. So not too good for Aaron Ward there. But it's kind of hard to see. There's not very many years. So what I like to do is go to label. And where is it? There we go. Show mark label. So that way you can show the value at each point on the line. And as you can see here, we can change in and out different players. He only had one season. Let's see. Let's do Crosby. Someone who's got a lot of seasons. There we go. There is much better graph. How you can see how within just a couple clicks, we've created a line graph of players' WAR over the course of this season. So pretty simple. Anything you want to add, CJ? Yeah, we can build a dashboard. No, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it's just a quick example so that, because
So-
it always look weird on the.
Yeah, on a single set. So if we want to compare, we'll do a dashboard, but there's a couple more things I'm gonna show. For this, as you see, it just shows sheet name. So we can add in variables there to change whenever we change the player's name. And to do that, you'll keep those brackets right there, but you'll add the name of the variable you want in there. This one's going to be player. So now it changes to Sidney Crosby. So I'll change a little bit more info.
By the way, that'll work with those brackets for any dimension, correct?
Yeah, for any dimension that you want to put in there. So like, if we were filtering by season in addition to, yeah. So we'll put team here, filter. I'm struggling, I'm sorry. So, and then as you can see, it pulls up the team there as well. I'll just get rid of this filter because we won't need it for right now. So that's just a little neat feature you can do to add into your graphs to kind of automate them. So that way you don't have to change all the labeling. It's a really cool little detail that Tableau has that maybe a lot of people don't know about. So we have WAR here, but say what if you wanted to look at it as a rate stat instead of a total WAR? Normally you could calculate that in Excel, pull that data in, but Tableau gives you that ability as well. So I've already calculated it down here, but what you do is you go to, we'll do a new one. You go to WAR, then we go to create calculated field. So then you see WAR there. So what we want to do is convert that to a rate stat. So normally what you do is divide by time on ice and times 60. So that should give us WAR per 60. Name it different. So then to show that on the graph now, what I do is remove WAR. then just pull 4 per 60, and that's it. That's how, it's just as quick as you can change the data. You can put it on the graph and get it going. So let's say if we wanted to compare multiple players like CJ was talking about with the dashboard, correct? So you go down to this one real quick. We need 2 of them. So what I do is just duplicate this, right click, that pulls up duplicate, and then you just got one exactly like it. All the features are the same, all the stats are the same, all the created variables will be the same. So now we got 2, we're going to go to our dashboard. And normally it starts out like really small. So you gotta go to range, fixed size. We'll make this one pretty big. Generic desktop is what I chose. And then all you would do is drag your graphs over. And it pulls over the 2 different sliders too. So if we want to say Ovechkin. There you go. You can compare Sidney Crosby's and Alex Ovechkin's WAR over the course of their career with just a couple clicks. Any questions?
Just a couple quick things also about dashboards. Early on when I was trying to make some of these, I would do all the work necessary in the worksheet. Then you'll notice when you try to visualize the worksheet on the web end, right? So if you type in the URL and you try to visualize the worksheet, it's going to fill up the whole screen. A lot of times the bar graphs are going to be like really tall, skinny bars. It's going to be very visually unappealing in addition to very noisy for the user. So a lot of times if you're trying to just make the formatting standard, and if you're trying to really have a lot of control over the appearance of the visualization, which is actually very important because in addition to showing the information, it needs to be intuitive. Then the dashboard is a really good way to do that because as you can see right now, this is, I think it's called tile representation.
Yes.
If you want to quickly show it the other.
Yeah. So right now it automatically kind of just fits the graph to your dashboard size. Like you don't have any control over it. But if you wanted to, you click on each one and you'll see more options here. You'll click on that. You'll go down to floating. Floating removes it from that tile and allows you to change the size and move it around as necessary. And all the little boxes will have that option. So change all these to floating.
As you can see now, this would be a good way of having a lot of control over what the exact appearance of your vids would be for any particular user. It's the way it appears here is more or less how it's going to appear on their screen, whereas the worksheet version, the non-dashboard one, the one that we started with, that's just going to pretty much fill up the screen. And so it's not going to look exactly the way that you have planned it.
So as you can see, I've converted them all here to floating and I can adjust just like CJ was saying. So how this is would be how your viewer would see it. And Tableau, the way to do it is whatever you save, whatever tab you save the file on is what's going to appear to the person viewing your visual. So if I saved it on this one, they would see this. So to get the dashboard, I'd have to switch to the dashboard, save.
While he's typing in, it's definitely a good idea to kind of over-save in Tableau, particularly for the public version, because sometimes it may crash and then you won't have the stuff that you did. I've had that problem more than once. I don't know if you've run into it.
Oh, I've definitely run into it. That is one major flaw with the program is that it will not, after a certain point of using it, it just decides not to save. And I don't know why. I haven't really run into an answer to fix it yet, but it
spends too long.
Yeah, or just save like set a timer for 15 minutes and just Command S. So as you can see, it's exactly as we left it. And then the viewer can change it as necessary, but I switched them off. One should be the other side, but you see what's going on there.
And like Matt said, it's going to save to whatever screen you were on Tableau. That doesn't mean that it's impossible to show the user what your other work was. The other tabs in there are, they can be visible, and you set that up on actually the web end. You can say show all tabs, I forget if it's show all tabs or show all worksheets or something. But if you look at, for instance, my Tableau, the all three zone per 60 statistics, there's a bunch of tabs. Sean Tierney does that a few times too, where you can navigate through all of the tabs that he has. And in that case, you would make sure all the tabs that you want visible are visible on the creation end, and then on the web end, you would just say show all the things that I have on mine.
Yeah, so I normally try to hide that because I think it kind of overwhelms your viewers sometimes, but it also can be a good tool to change it up as well. So that's our first basic graph. Anyone have any questions? Okay. So next we're going to show you how to make a scatter plot. There we go.
Hey, I'm just wondering, so how would you fix the axis like limits?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, actually. Okay, so let's go back to another one here. So let's go here. Oh, Blizzard, go away. Yes. So to change the axis, so what you would do, you would just right click on it and go to edit axis. And as you can see here, it sets it up first as automatic. It fits it to your data, and it will change as your data changes. But obviously sometimes it can mislead your visuals. So in order to fix it, you would just go down here to fixed, and you could set it to, we'll say -1, and then just say 1. And that's it. And then it'll be fixed for all of other players as well, as you can see.
That's a good habit to get into if you're creating a player comparison tool of any kind, which is kind of what we just did here, because the new worksheet that you've duplicated will have its own automatically adjusting axis, and so it might look like they're vastly outperforming the other guy when it's really just because the axis was adjusted. So fixing the axes is a helpful thing. Thank you, Luke, Josh. I don't care.
Okay, one quick thing I want to show too is also we can go down here and right click. Like these may be a little hard to read because they kind of run together. Just go to rotate label, and then I'll kick them out 90 degrees, make them a little bit easier to read as well on your graphs. Any other question? Okay. So we will move on to our next graph, which is a scatter plot in the Sean Tierney style. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with. As you can see here, I've already created it, but we'll go and create a fresh one. The data for this will be, show you which file. Going to be the 2017-2018 season CSV that I'm pointing out here. If you downloaded the zip file, it'll be labeled exactly like that. So it's basically a game-by-game breakdown of every player in the NHL for the 2017-2018 season. So to refresh that, you would go to the screen again. You would go to text file, click on the file again, and then just hit open. Well, we've already done that, so let's go back to Tableau. So, as you can see here, we have a lot more variables, calculations, but we're only going to mainly work with Corsi for 60 and Corsi against 60. However, we'll need to do a calculation, another calculation, as these are broken down by game. If we just kind of sum them together, it won't work, it won't be the right calculation. So what we need to do is Go down, right click, create calculated field. I've already done this one, but you would do it on, say, whatever, quartz against 60. And then, oops, not that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah, edit. Okay, there we go. So we will edit, or you'll go to create. I went to edit because I've already created the calculation. So what we're doing is we're going to sum all the core C4, divide by the sum of their time on ice, times by 60, and then you're going to repeat the process for core C against, which will look like that, as you can see. So once we have those created, you just, you're going to drag them to column, one to columns, and one to rows. And as you can see, it just puts one dot there. Because Tableau, again, is just summing all the values together. We haven't added any of those dimensions to create the buckets for our graph to know how to break the data apart. So without that, it's just going to sum it together and give you one dot. So we obviously don't want one dot. To then break it up by player, we would grab player here, and we're going to drag it to this detail shelf. It's called a shelf, is the terminology. I call it square, whatever button. Either of those will work. So you grab the player and you drag it to this detail button. And there we go. Now we got a bunch of dots. And we can see, if you hover on them, you see this is Philip Home. This guy's Rocco Grimaldi. But we're not quite there yet. It's just a bunch of dots. It's kind of ugly. Let's bring it up. So in order to do that, we want to determine each player's team in this graph. And we want to do that by shape. So we want the dot to change shapes depending on the team. So that's how you're going to get it to tie to the icons, as you'll see. So we grab team and we just drop it on the shape button. You're just going to hit add all members. I've already got it tied together, so but we'll go and see how to do that. But basically, you'll pull up a bunch of different shapes, and it'll all be tied to the team. In order to get the logos, what you'll need to do is in that folder, there is a folder called NHL Logos. You're going to take that and you're going to paste it into your Tableau repository folder. Normally I just search for it because I can never remember where it is. Spell repository correctly. There it is. So this one stored it in documents on a Mac, probably stores it there. You just search for it, double click, go into shapes, this folder right here, and you'll just drop that NHL logos folder in there. So that way Tableau knows where to pull the shapes from. So once that's done, we'll go back to our graph. You'll go to shape, and as you can see here, they're already lined up. I'll make it a little bit bigger. But you would go through, so like for Anaheim, you would go and click on the Anaheim Duck. Arizona, click on the Wolf, Boston, the Bee, so on and so forth. So you get every team assigned. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So default, it's going to look like that.
Yeah, so if you hadn't done the NHL logo stuff prep in your Tableau repository, then this is what you would start seeing, and this is just the default shapes, and now we're trying to tell it which shapes to use. And so by putting the logos into the repository, you get it a batch of possible ones to pick from. So
and then we can go back in. Then I'll show you how to do it. So we'll go down here, see it pulls up NHL logos. Click on that. Click on assign palette. If you don't have them named properly in alphabetical order, it won't do that. So, but with these it will, because I've named them all correctly. But you may have to double check. Sometimes it will like put San Jose on St. Louis or something, mix up Carolina and Calgary.
If you were working with this season and the season before, then the introduction of Vegas will screw up the bottom end of your logos also. That happened to me once. So if that does happen, but like a lot of them are right, but a couple of them are wrong, you can just go logo by logo and reassign them.
Yeah, so like say if Columbus was the Devils, for some reason, you just click on Columbus, it's the Devils logo, but we need it to be Columbus. Just click on that. Click on the Columbus logo, it changes it, everything looks good. Then we hit OK, and there we go. But these are really tiny, so we're going to increase the size of them by hitting the size button and dragging it up. I do about the middle, a little bit bigger. Also, we're a little stretched out, as you can see. We got the goalie got in there, who's messing. Jeff Ruby's messing up our axis, so we'll just cut him out of there. He's not important. So we'll go in and edit axis again, like the question asked earlier. We're on the fixed. We'll say 40 to 80. That looks good. And we'll do the same over here too.
Quick side note, if you were making your own logos folder, Matt's logos folder already has the transparent backgrounds, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, if you chose your own logos just from like Google Images or something, a lot of times the background will be transparent, it'll be white. And so all these logos will look like there's a lot of random white spaces between them and it'll look kind of ugly. You'll have to either make the background transparent or choose a different logo one, which is transparent.
Yeah, if you don't like the old school logos, you gotta do that yourself. But if you're cool with that, I've already done it for you, and you can use those. So, yes. So as you can see here, we have Corsi for and Corsi against. Normally Tierney's graph has those reversed, I believe. And so to do that really quickly, we have this little button up here. Swap rows and columns. All you gotta do is hit that, and it switches them around. So the next thing we want to add is the average lines to kind of denote our good, bad, dull, fun sections, as a lot of people like to call them. So we go back into the axis here, right click, edit axis. Whoops, wrong one. Right click, add reference line. And then we would go to, so it's automatically going to add it here. It's got a value. It's got a, if we wanted to, we could do median, we could do maximum, we could do minimum, constant, like we just wanted a certain like 0 value or 50 value. If you're doing like Corsi 4, you just want the straight 50, you do constant. You know, if you wanted a median, just like that, we're just going to do average. As you see, it pops up there. It says average right there. I normally get rid of those, and the way to do that is go to label. Go to none. I mean, you could also set it to value, and it'll show the value right there, 58.1. I usually just set it to none, so it makes a cleaner graph. Then we'll go down here to the line. Automatically selects gray, which is kind of light. I think it kind of gets hidden in the graph. I usually just switch it to black to kind of make it pop out there. And then just hit OK. Then we'll repeat the process down here. And that's it for the average lines. So pretty simple process. Any questions? Anything you'd like to add?
I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it's if you filter out some of the teams those lines will readjust.
Yes,
correct?
as of right now, you would need to do what's called a level of detail average, which I didn't really want to get into. It's a little bit more advanced, but yeah, if you wanted to add in team filters, I will show you a quick way to get around that as of right now. But if you did add a filter like we did earlier with the players, if you then selected a team on that filter, it will adjust those average lines to what the data is in the filter.
We don't have to get in, like I said, we don't have to get into the level of detail thing right now, but it is important if you're creating your own viz that if you filter out all the other teams and you just want to see your team, you are now going to be judging versus the team averages. Those lines will automatically change. So you'll be judging versus team average as opposed to league average. They don't by default fix themselves at that location.
Okay, so the next thing on these common graphs is to invert the y-axis here to make this the bad and this the good quadrants. So again, we'll right click, edit axis, go to scale, hit reversed, and then just close out, and that's it. So now we basically have our graph here of our core C4, core C against. We've divided our quadrants. The last thing to do now is just kind of clean it up, add your annotations. So we'll go here to our sheet name, say core C 2018. I would do a little bit more, but I'm talking. So is this the dashboard that you had the text, correct? It's been a while. Annotations? Okay. Okay. Oh, wait, never mind. So go to annotate area. Let's see, that's good. Go down here, right click, annotate area. This is fun. Right click, annotate bad. And then dull. Obviously, you can move these around. Yeah, you can click on them and move them around as needed, change the size so they don't cover up your data.
I do believe on the dashboard and you can also put those in by just inserting like a text box
Yeah,
or something.
yeah,
So
so
on either end you can do it.
Yeah, they've updated it like just recently, so I don't know if they changed that or not. So basically, the graph here is done. I mean, you can set it up, you can hover over it, we can see which players are there, their teams, their scores. And so if you wanted to highlight a certain team, you can go over here and click on that. I guess they changed that. But you would go to right here. Go to click on that team pill. You can also do it over here, I believe. No, maybe not. Maybe it's just there. So wherever you pull the team in and then go to show highlighter. So that way will allow you to highlight the team. It does move the bars, the average bars or lines, but you can still see the other ones in the background. So, and that would be it. And then you just go to your dashboard here, pull that in there, adjust your size, make it a little bit bigger, like that, maybe a little bigger. And you choose to highlight your teams. We'll do Carolina. I'm a Carolina fan. They looked pretty good last year, despite the results. And then you just go to save again, and then it would post it to the web. Anything you'd like to add? Okay. So those are those two graphs. I'm going to hand it over to CJ. He has a graph for you guys as well.
Of course, we're asleep right now, so let me just
While you get set up, does anyone have any questions, concerns?
Or requests for that matter.
Requests,
Something that you'd
yeah.
like to see.
If you would like us to build a graph, artisanal graph on the fly, we will take requests.
So why should I use Tableau instead of Excel?
Because
How do you want to take this?
I mean, for me to do what I just did, it took explaining it took me about 40 minutes. It would take me longer to do that in Excel for me. I don't find the way Excel does graphs to be intuitive. I find this to be a much more intuitive, much more flexible way to work with your data.
So a big thing for me, comparing to Excel, regardless of how much of a trolling question this was, it actually has important consequences. Again, Tableau, you're able to manipulate after having created the graph. So if you're giving the graph to someone else, they can still change around what the graph's going to look like. There are ways to do that with something like Google Sheets or Excel, but it's much worse than Tableau. Tableau has a lot of ways to manipulate it after you've created it.
You also cannot host your Excel spreadsheet on the web for free, at least last time I checked.
All right, so I have tweeted out a link to the data set that I'm going to be using. This one's not as of right now in Matt's zip folder, but we could probably add it there for future reference.
Yeah, I'll get this data in, I'll zip it up and make it where it's available.
So since this is RITSAC as opposed to RITHAC, we wanted to do one example of a non-hockey data. And so we're going to use baseball to do this one. Fan graphs, for anyone who follows baseball, fan graphs is obviously an excellent utility to do this kind of thing. We are going to be just downloading a leaderboard to be able to use. So if you want to download from my Twitter, you can just go to my account, which is @CJTDevil, shameless self-promotion. And if not, and you want to do it directly from the site, or if you want to know how to do it from the site for future references, then just go to fangraphs.com, hit the leaderboard, and go to wherever you want to go. So let's say 2018, right? Current year. Fangraphs is very nice, and they will let you export the data to a CSV, right? And then you can just access that from wherever you would like to do so. So you would bring up your Tableau, as Matt has done a few times already, and then you would find the file, which again is going to be a text file, regardless of whether or not you open them up traditionally in Excel. Tableau doesn't know what your tendencies are, it just knows what the file is, and a CSV is determined to be a text file. So even if you downloaded something in CSV and you normally open it in Excel, it will be interpreted as a text file. It won't register if you try to look in for Excel. All right, so this is the data. Again, we can check to make sure everything is the way that we want it to look. It appears on first glance to be okay, except for the percentage categories over here, which we can change, but luckily for us, those aren't actually going to be used in this particular graph. But as you can see, they're character as opposed to numeric. So we would, if we were using it, we want to change that. The reason being there's a percentage sign in there, which is non-numeric, so it thinks that that's a character instead. But like I said, it's not going to be particularly important for us. So we can go to a sheet, same way that Matt has set up a few times for us. And let's say that we want to present something like OPS. For anyone that doesn't know what OPS is, it's on-base percentage plus slugging percentage. Those two things, on-base percentage, pretty intuitive. I would assume what percent of plate appearances you got on base. Slugging kind of gives you values for how many bases you got per event. So if you add the two together, you get a statistic called OPS, which is a very commonly used statistic. But different players get the totals of their OPS in different ways. Some get on base a lot, some are really powerful, so they'll have a lot of home runs, doubles, triples, and that'll raise their OPS. So it can be sometimes helpful to split that up and see how what their total OPS was, but also how they got there. So we're going to try to stack a bar chart to replicate this addition process. So players in this particular data set, it's not called player, it's called name. So you would just drag the name into set columns. And this is always how it will default, by the way. It will always just bring you to something like this with the little ABC thing.
One quick thing I want to say is you don't have to create a graph. Actually, Tableau will create a table for you if you just wanted a more Excel style output. So it'd be like this, and then you would bring in whatever values you would and just tell it to display a table instead of a graph as well.
Yeah, and that table would also update if you have like calculated fields that you'd like to be in there that do something, it will self-update. Again, another benefit of using something like Tableau over Excel, your user would be able to manipulate that table to a greater degree than they would be able to manipulate an Excel file unless they downloaded it. Right? So we wanted to create a total OPS representation, but we wanted to show it by adding together two statistics. So if we wanted to just get OPS, we could just drag an OPS thing in there, which doesn't look like they have. It's not particularly important. But you'll see that there is a OBP and a slugging. So just to show you what that would look like if we tried to do both of them at the same time, this is not how you're actually going to do it, but just to show you what happens if you're doing it the wrong way. If you drag both of these into something like rows, you would get this, which is not a stacked bar chart. This is not what we were going for, right? The reason for this is because of the way, again, the Tableau thinks. So it's thinking that those are going to be two separate things that want to be visualized separately as opposed to something that combines into one unit. So we want those little green ovals that you're looking at, or the blue oval next to columns and rows, those are called pills normally. We want one pill to represent all of the data that we need, and we want it to just be classified by something else. So the way that we're going to do that is rather than dragging in the individual pieces of data, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of our measures category, and you'll see that there's two italicized pills that you can drag. And the last one is the one that we're interested in at the moment. It's called measure values. When you're trying to do particularly stacked bar chart, this is normally where I seem to see it coming into play a lot, but I'm sure that there's plenty of other cases where it's relevant. If you're trying to use multiple values and present them as a single figure, then measure values is going to be the way to do that. So we're going to drag measure values into the row. And you're going to see this happen, which is, once again, this is not the finished version of the graph. What it's doing right now is having the names as the columns, and the rows, it's showing you the grand total of every data, of every row in the data set, or every column in the data set, which is, other than being completely incoherent, not what we're trying to actually do at the moment, right? So we want to limit which particular statistics it's pulling. We're only interested in this moment in OBP and slugging. So the way that we can do that is by right-clicking the measure values, and you're only going to want to select the ones that are of interest to you. So to start over, you would go to none to get rid of everything, and then you would manually select the ones that you're interested in, which in this case are OBP and slugging. And if you apply, you'll see that this is now what the graph looks like. The graph is now just OBP and slugging, but we still don't have the desired result, which is we want to see what portion of those bars was OBP and what portion of those bars was slugging, right? Right now, we just have their OPS. So this would be what their total OPS was, which is important, but we can get a little bit more information without losing a whole lot of intuition here. And the way we do that is using, again, kind of the fundamental aspect of how Tableau works, which we mentioned all the way at the beginning. The dimensions are the bins that you're putting the data into, and the measures are the actual data themselves. So we can make this bar split up into the two bins that we are using to create this data. So the measure names pill knows what part of this is slugging and what part of this is OBP. So if we drag this into something that can split up the bar for us, it'll be able to tease apart that information. And the way that we would do that in a stacked bar chart is by making that represent the color. So we would drag measure names into, I'm not sure if you can see it, looks like it's been cut off for some reason on my computer right now, but there's a little 4 color button there. You drag it in, and now you can see that the chart now is split up into the OBP and the slugging, and their total is what their OPS is going to be, all right? So now you see every player, you see what their OBP and slugging would be separated, and together, which would be their OPS. All right. Anything that you want to?
You want to show them how to change the colors? Or
Oh, yeah, sure. So if you go to the colors tab, you can edit the colors. And then you can manually do this, or again, if you have something saved, I actually do think it lets you preload colors in, preload a color palette. I have not done that yet for any reason, but if you wanted to, it's able to be done. But if you want to, you can just click individually. And for instance, let's say that I like red and blue, which I tend to use for some reason. Oops.
Yeah, just hit OK.
Yeah. There we go. Now it'll adjust the colors to red and blue, whatever your aesthetic of choice may be. You can make it look however you would want to for that. If your goal is your goal here is obviously to represent OPS. We haven't looked into the tooltip much at all yet, so
Yeah, do something. Do a little something on that, and maybe show them how to edit the aliases for OBP and slugging. Because if you're making the data visual, you may be familiar with what all these acronyms mean. But if you have a chance to spell them out, I always like to do that if possible, if it's for a wider audience.
So when you hover over any piece of information in Tableau, something that, or at least the way that it's originally made here is pretty intuitive, I think. Whenever you hover over a particular piece of information, it will tell you all of the relevant data that's included in that particular piece of information. So if I go to Aaron Judge, because I'm a Yankees fan, I hear the booze at home already. I can hover over the blue part, which as you can see is OBP, and it's telling me that that is the player is Aaron Judge, and his OBP is 394, would be 394 OBP. But this tooltip is going to be very important, obviously, for your users or your viewers. Something about the thing that you're hovering over. And anything that you would want to do in there, you can do using the tooltip. So again, these are the same types of features that represent this is the same kind of definition down here. You can look like OBP equals on base percentage, and then I can type in that slugging equals slugging percentage, or just slugging, I guess. And then OPS equals OBP plus SLG. Just some information that your viewer might want to know about how this statistic is created. And now you can see that all of that information is all in there. Not particularly, now it's a little bit noisy, but just to demonstrate the fact that you're able to present information to your viewer relevant to that particular data set or to the data at large. You said you wanted to do aliases?
Yeah, for your measure names up there, if you go over to the box.
Oh, down here, you mean?
No, up top here, like where it said, all the way to the right. Where it says-
Oh,
yeah.
oh, I know what you mean, okay.
So,
Yeah, so if, does that mean just like to make it on base percentages?
yeah, I just want to show that you can change these values. They don't have to be, whatever your data says they are, you can change that to whatever you need it to be. Like
So am I right in saying that the alias is just the column name?
yeah, the column name. You can change it to represent whatever you want to, or describe whatever you need it to for your viewer. So you're not stuck with just whatever the data has. Tableau has almost, unheard of amount of customization that you can do with just about everything in your visual that you may not find.
So you see we changed the measure name there to on base percentage, and then if you hover over one of them, now it says on base percentage in that little, now it says here on base percentage as opposed to OBP, which, I mean, you wouldn't probably do that in this particular case, but again, just to demonstrate that you're able to do it if you need to. And just something that I've run into a few times that is helpful in this instance. So I visualize data that is frequently updated. If you go to a prior viz that you were creating or something, and you had previously changed a column name, in other words, you changed the alias, then you upload this new data. Tableau will remember that you had changed that column name to something else previously. So let's say that I've downloaded this Fangraphs CSV and made a viz about it, and then I published it, right? Let's say that now I want to update it by the end of the year. At the end of the year, I can re-download the CSV and upload it to the same viz that I was using, and the viz will remember that I had changed the column names or aliases to new names, and it will automatically keep them. So important things to notice, it doesn't actually change the raw data file, it changes the alias that it's using, and it will also remember changes that you have made to column names and aliases so that it will automatically update in the future. Let's change this back for the moment, just for simplicity. And I've made a little bit of a mess of the tooltip for demonstration purposes, so I'm just gonna go back to normal now. Is there anything we haven't shown like dashboards or anything like that?
I don't think so, unless anyone else has a question about dashboard.
I guess we haven't shown have we done the text boxes yet for
No,
you can,
we did.
So if I wanted to represent some piece of data, let's say that I wanted to display the player that was being used at a particular moment, or if I wanted to show the lore of a player, I can drag that into this little text box area, and it will, in every single category where it's relevant, it will put the text in there. In this particular case, I'm not entirely sure why you would want to put both pieces of lore in for every player, but you might want to show some statistic over some bar graph. And the way you would do that is by using this little text button. Only reason I'm showing you this is because I don't think we've used the text button. We might have done it in the
Maybe, but yeah, it's good. You can also like click on it, and I think it has that, that show mark labels value. Like if you didn't add anything, you can just click on that. It'll automatically show the values of what your data is.
You can, I don't think we put in a filter that other than like the player name, I guess we can put in the.
Yeah, if you
So
want
for
to put a
instance-
team filter.
Yeah, so for instance, if you wanted to let your user show all of the OPS for a given team, the way that you can do that, you can drag it into a filter, or you can just go directly to the dimension and say show filter, and it'll pop up over here. I share Matthew's Affinity to have drop-down menus. So I could pick a team, for instance, I don't know, let's say the Yankees, and it would show, this is just the players that were in the data set that we were using, so this is just the original leaderboard. And then you can see just the Yankee players and what their OPSs would be as segmented into OBP and slugging. Also, it seems to be cut off a little bit here, but sometimes this will have all as an option, and sometimes you won't want to do that. So you can also edit that. I forget what that is. I think it's in the formatting. I can't find that right now. In this case, we want all the values anyway, so I guess it's not particularly relevant. That's not me before though. We've already made a few dashboards, but again, the normal way that you would make a dashboard, click on the new dashboard button, and whatever sheet you'd be interested in, it will automatically tile it for you, and you can see this here. You can change the title, the value, etc., and this would be exactly what your viewer would see. So if you want it to not, if you want it to be fixed, then you go to fixed size, the same way that we've done the last few times in a row. Desktop browser, mine is significantly larger, small line, whatever you would want. Mine, I actually normally end up using these little dials here to make it so that I can just keep going until I get one that suits my whimsy. It's normally how I operate, keep going until something suits my whimsy. That's 3 examples.
Yeah.
Anyone have any requests of any kind, visualizing some specific type of data?
So if you wanted to sort that so that like my track, so it goes from like largest to smallest, how would you?
Good. So the way that you can do that is inside you can do that by the name column, because the name is the thing that you would be sorting. And so you would go into sort, and then you'll have a few options with how you want to sort it. So by default, it's in the data source order, so that's whatever order it was in the data that you had uploaded. If we change it to alphabetic, nothing would change because the data, in this case, it would change a little bit, but that would change it so that the players are listed in alphabetical order. And lastly, the one that would be relevant would be the field character, which in this case, if you'll recall, we didn't actually have an OPS piece of information. So what I would have done here is I would create a calculated field, which was OPS. And that would simply be OBP plus slugging. We now have an OPS measure there. And so if I go into measure values, name, and sort, I'll be able to sort by this new field that I've created, which is OPS right here. By default, it will be in ascending order. Normally, people like to go the reverse way. If you wanted to do that, you would go into the sorting and you would change it to descending.
You also can, if you'll show them the 2 buttons up top next to the switch columns. Go up a little bit more. To your left. Yeah. Those should all change sorting as well, although it's default to name. If you're just using a standard measure there, you could click on that and that would change your sorting as well.
Other questions? Yeah.
If you wanted to show the league average and then have that stay fixed no matter which inputs you had.
Do you want to?
I think that's all you. It's been a while since I've done that.
Yeah. So that's what was the name for it?
Level of detail.
Yeah, level of detail. I don't typically use it. Normally, I use my way around it is to do the exact same thing that Matt had done with the line. But I would just find the number myself, right? So I would calculate outside the data set what the league average OPS is, and then you can choose the same way that he did for the previous. Example.
Yeah, we can have it set fixed the level of detail, but like you would say, when I first started to get away with it was just to calculate it and that's create a constant line. So that way, whenever you filter, it won't change that line.
So just to do a quick example, you would drag constant line. I mean, I don't think we did this. I don't know. Did you go over that?
I did not go over the format at all.
Okay, yeah. So, there's the data tab, which tells you all the pieces of information from your data source. And there's the analytics tab, which is a bunch of stuff that you can do to the chart, kind of think of it as a bird's eye view looking at all the data down here, stuff you can do on top of the data. So creating a constant line over the data would be one way to do that. So you could put in a constant line by just dragging it into the table. And now you can pick a value. So like I said, this one won't change. So it does satisfy that request, but you would need to just calculate the league average OPS outside of there. I don't really know off the top of my head, what would the league average OPS be roughly? You want to have a ballpark? The 0.8, 0.7, 0.8, something like that, I think.
Sure.
So now that's going to show you that's high, probably.
I would say Mike Trout is very much above.
Well, that
would be my guess.
That part checks that. That should be true. But whatever it is, let's just say, now if you, regardless of what you do, that line will not change. That one will not keep adjusting obviously with the team. So if I change this to the Diamondbacks, it's still 0.75. So that's a easy way of doing that particular thing. Level of detail is, I think, probably a notch up in difficulty. Other questions or requests of various sorts?
I wanted to round those numbers, there's no 4 digits. I wanted to drop that to 750.
Yeah, so there is a whole formatting tab that you can get into, and these different tabs here will control which part of the data you are formatting. And what is that?
You may have to do it in the axis, if I recall.
For the constant?
Maybe.
Oh, I'm not clicking on the, seriously, I'm gonna have to go over here.
I believe so, edit reference line.
Nah, it shouldn't be. Format. There we go. That should be it, right? And now I can adjust that to however many decimal places I would like it to be. And you see that will adjust both the axis and the reference line. So now the axis is in 2 decimals, and so is the reference line that we put in there. So both things have been adjusted. Full the other chart example that we want to do? Or?
Yeah, I can show one more thing. We won't go into great detail, but just to show kind of the power behind Tableau, you can get more advanced. So normally when you're just starting out, you're probably just going to pull in one flat file. However, Tableau has an ability to work with multiple tables like you would in an SQL database, and you can pull them in and join them as needed. And I'll show you a little example of that right now. So this is a baseball data set that is kind of split up into tables, much like you would have a relational database. So we're going to open up our first one. And that's just got people. This has got all baseball players from like 1851 to present. But as you can see, it just has a player ID. We won't know the names of the players until we pull that data in, that join. Actually, no, this one has the names. You won't know the stats until you pull those in. So you'll go over here. This is the batting, which will have their batting stats. So you'll click on that, and you'll drag it, and it'll pull it up, and it automatically does an inner join. So you could do a left, you could do a full outer, you could do a right. Just if you're familiar with those, if not, you can do it. And so it's automatically seen that we have 2 columns here, player ID on 1, player ID on 2, and it's assumed those are the keys. Sometimes it will be right, sometimes it will be wrong. Sometimes you got to go in there and change that. So that's automatically pulled that in, and as you look down here, let's see, so we'll pull in, but we need to pull in one more set of data because it has the player, it has their stats, but it just has their team ID here, which could be different, like depending on the year. Like, I don't even BS1, who knows what that is in 1871? Who knows? But so we got to pull in the teams to get that data. So we'll pull that in again, and we'll do another join. So that pulls that in, another inner join. And then we'll go here. As you can see here, it's just assumed that doubles, we want to join on that. Obviously, we don't want to join on that. So we'll go into team ID. Team ID right there. But as you can see, it's not quite there yet. It's done a lot of multiplication, which it shouldn't be doing. So we need to add in another ID for year as well. Now that's good. And as you can see, it looks, now that looks better. So we have all our data in now. That's from like 3 different tables. So if you're working in an SQL database, say you want to set up your Tableau to pull from your SQL that you update with something else, you could just pull in your tables, set up your joins like you would in your SQL script, and every time your Tableau refreshes, it'll just refresh from those tables, and you won't have to worry about loading a text file. And so this is just something really powerful that Tableau can do, and then you go over to your sheet like normal. So it'll take, and as you can see here, now you have your different categories from your different tables per se. So if we wanted to, let's do some batting stats. We would do so we got their names, and then make this bigger. And the measures are split up by the tables as well. So we want the batting stats. So what we'll do is, again, pull in measure values. Again, it sums them all up like before, but we want to, we want doubles, triples, hits, home runs. Say we'll do that. So it's done it as a bar graph or another stacked bar graph like we did before, but just on a much larger scale because of the data that you're able to pull in using relational database joins. So, I mean, it's a little bit more advanced than the basic stuff, but I wanted to show that Tableau can kind of go beyond just the basics. It's a very robust data analysis tool that can work with Python, can work with SQL, can work with databases and can scale up much larger than probably an Excel spreadsheet can.
Just in the interest of making the best use of everyone's time, I can show you guys how to do a little bit of something with there's actually a third type of, I don't know what you want to call it, but there's the measure names, we have the measures, the dimensions, and there's actually a third thing that we haven't gotten into yet. So I might as well talk about briefly what that third thing is. And that would be a parameter, right? So I'm not with that right now. Is that I think that's the wrong thing. So you can add in a third type of, or a third piece of information called a parameter. You can use a parameter for a bunch of different things. I've actually used a parameter to create something to sort by different parts of the data. So for instance, in this case, I would use it to sort by either OBP or slugging. So if I could change it so that I'm sorting from greatest to least in either OBP or slugging, as opposed to just by by one thing, and I could make the user able to manipulate that on their own. So I could create a parameter by just going to the little drop-down menu at the top of the dimensions and say create a parameter, right? So I already have one here, but let's delete it. Let's pretend I didn't have that. All right, so you need to go to this little drop-down menu because as you can see there, it won't show you parameters unless you put one in. So you can create a parameter, and the parameter can be either just a number, which you can actually also, it would be a larger discussion, but you can also use parameters in creating those reference lines that we've been using. That's another way to get a line that won't be changing. There's communication between parameters and the analytics tab. But in this case, let's say that I wanted to just make it the thing that I'm going to sort by. So I'm just going to call this the sorter, right? I'm going to make this data into a list. So this parameter is going to be one of any type of specific member of a list. So let's say that I want the value number 1 to be OBP. There's more than one way to do this. You can do this in a bunch of different ways. I'm choosing to codify it with numbers. You don't necessarily have to, but it's one way to do it. And I'll call 2 slugging. So now I have a parameter that is a list of pieces of information. When it's 1, it's going to be OBP. When it's 2, it's going to be slugging. So you'll recall that in the measure in the name tab, I can sort by a specific a measure, right? And so I'm going to shoehorn in one more helpful thing that you can do, which is very basic but sort of universal to coding, which is if statements, right? Is that too high, or you think we can?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Yeah. Right. So I'm going to create a new measure that is an if statement. All right. So by creating this new measure, create calculated field. All right. So if statements in Tableau, you need to open and close them. You start if, and then you can have a then statement, and then you have to end it all the way at the end of it. So if you type if, it does know what that means. It does have auto completing things like that. You'll recall that I have a sorter parameter. It remembers what the parameters are. So what you're saying right now is if this sorter parameter, which is either 0 or 1, right? If sorter equals 1, then my variable, which is the thing that I'm defining right now, this variable is going to be whatever I tell it to after this then statement. Then we're going to use, we're going to do OBP first or slugging first, I forget.
OBP.
OBP, okay. Right. So right now this is saying if my sorter value is 1, then it's creating, this measure, which we can call whatever we want. Let's call this the sort measure. Okay. So this is saying that if our parameter is 1, then the sort measure feature will create OBP. So you might ask why I'm doing this in the first place. The reason is because a parameter is allowed to be controlled by the user, all right? Not you, the creator, the person who's using it. So we'll be able to create a parameter control, and this means that the user will be able to choose which thing we're sorting by. It's not going to be predefined by what you've chosen to sort by in the data. All right. There's only 2 values right now, 1 and 2, so I can just type else. If there was more than that, I would type else if, and 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. In this case, I only have 2 numbers, so I just need if else. So right now I'm saying if sorter is 1, then we're using OBP. If anything else, in other words, if sorter is 2, because that's the only other possibility, then we were going to use slugging. And it's almost done, so now we would just put end. So now I've created a measure that will take on the value of OBP or slugging, depending on what the parameter value is. And I can do this by showing parameter control. So again, I went down to the parameters, right-clicked it, and went to show parameter control. You'll see that now there's this little tile that has opened up, sorter. And that will change whether I'm using OBP or slugging. So if I go to the names, sort, and I sort by my measure that I just created, sort measure. Right now it's being sorted by OBP, which is, I'm not sure if you can immediately tell from this, but the blue part is increasing in value right now. And if I change this to slugging, you'll see that now the red part is increasing in value, right? And so, as I said before, you would always be able to do this by just changing the field that you're sorting by. But now by introducing a parameter, what you've done is you've allowed your user, after you created the graph, to sort by whatever piece of information they want to sort by. So particularly if you're creating a stacked bar with multiple pieces of information per line, and you want to sort by some particular thing, then this would be a good way of doing so, by putting a parameter in. That's how I've created some of the viz that I've created. It allows you to kind of get like almost a leaderboard for statistics that you might be showing multiple versions of in one row of information. So finished product with also just a little shameless self-promotion. So this is from my Tableau. This is zone entries. I'll get into a whole other thing about this. Come to my talk tomorrow. But so this is showing you multiple different pieces of information all at once. So you have fails, dump-ins, carries, and entry passes. So there's a bunch of different things that you're visualizing at once here, but it would be helpful for the user to know how a player performs relative to their peers in any one of those colors. So you could just remove any one of these colors, like, or focus in on any one of them. So if I only want to see carries, then, for instance, I can say keep only. Great, and now everything else is gone, and I can just see that part. But if I want to keep showing all of the data, but sort by a specific variable, before we would not have been able to do that, because before it was on the creator to choose what you were sorting by. When you introduce a parameter control, now me, the user now, can just go down to this little sort by and choose from any number of a list. In our example, it was OBP and slugging. In this example, there's a few different things you can sort by. It doesn't even need to be a variable that's in your data already. It can be a piece of information that you calculated, right? I could have put in OPS also, which was not in the data, and it would be able to sort by that. So for instance, if I wanted to sort by entry passes per 60, which is the dark blue part, I don't know if you can see it, but I select entry passes, now you can see that the dark blue is the largest at the top, and it's in descending order of length. And so this will be kind of allow you to, more like a normal intuitive league database, right? Allow you to see the leaders in any one statistic, even though you're displaying 4 or 5, however many you want at a time.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up. There's a couple things I want to give, and okay, these are just wanting to point out these are some people who I followed when I first started out doing Tableau. I think they do great work. Some of them are in sports, some of them are not. Joel Lurie, I believe, works at Tableau. She does great work. They look like art. It's really good. Ryan Sleeper is another guy. He does some tutorials, tips. He focuses on that too. Of course, everyone knows Sean Tierney. Ian Fleming was one of my biggest influences getting started in the way he did dashboards, along with Rob Tufts, who was also another great, I believe he does the Tableau for Rob Volman's hockey abstract. And then Colin Cutmore does some Sin stuff, and Alyssa Longmire, I'm probably mispronouncing that. She does, I apologize. She does some good Tableau stuff for women's hockey, both in Australia and the States in Canada as well. So I suggest following them, talking to them if you want to get some ideas. Just about the data sources, the baseball data, the one I showed you was from Sean Lehman's Baseball Archive. It's a great resource for it. It has every baseball stat you can walk back to like 1851. It's a great resource. The NHL data, I gathered that myself, but I was using Emmanuel Perry Scraper, who I'm immensely thankful for making that open source as well. The WAR data was from Josh and Luke, the Evolving Wall twins, which I mentioned earlier, but I'd like to thank them again for making that public. It's a very good data set to play around with and relevant. And I'd also like to mention on my website, you can get a lot more in-depth stuff, Tableau tutorials, and I went in here. I'm a much better writer than a speaker, I think. So hopefully you enjoy them a lot more. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. I'd like to thank Andy. Yes, I'm sorry, Andy. I'd like to thank Andy for chipping in and helping out. She's great. She's a great Tableau person as well, so follow her.
Her Tableau is probably one of the prettiest that I've ever seen.
It's very
their evaluations.
It's very nice Tableau. I'd like to thank Rochester for having us here, Rochester Institute of Technology for having us, and I'd like to thank CJ for helping me out with this. He was a great resource as well.
Like then Matt, who actually, for people who don't know, Matt pretty much taught me how to do Tableau all the way at the beginning. So he's kind of like the godfather of several different sources of tutorials.
Yeah.
RLAnalytics.com. Check that out.
Any questions, comments before we wrap things up?
Compliments, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have one quick question you might not have the answer to, but I have just been digging around online, and have you ever tried to connect R with Tableau?
I haven't.
Seems like it's possible, but.
You mean like running a script inside Tableau, like a ggplot script or something?
Or somehow using like R, especially for the data.
Oh,
manipulation and stuff, and leading it directly into Tableau.
I can, yeah. So Tableau in that first screen that we see with like Excel, text, yada yada yada. One of them I believe is our data, right?
I would have to double check.
Yeah, I believe one of them. If not, you can probably. I think you can kind of shoehorn your way in there. For mine is I do almost all of the data prep end in R, and then I normally create a CSV and then use the CSV because it's just a simple write CSV function in R. But there is a way to go straight from R to Tableau. It's not. I wouldn't say it adds a whole nother layer of helpfulness, right? Like there's just one line of code in R that you would need to make a CSV. But yeah, you can make it straight from R data into Tableau. I don't know that they work well together. Like I don't know if you keep running the R script if the Tableau will self-update online. I don't know if that happens. I haven't tried that. I don't know if that was kind of what you were getting at, or.
I saw something about that you can supposedly connect the desktop version of Tableau with R now. So I didn't get far into it.
Yeah, at least I don't know how well it does with self-updating because for CSVs I know it does not. You need to ask it to self-update. So that's the only thing that I could, if that happens perhaps. But I don't particularly use that feature often. I just print CSV and then use the CSV in Tableau. Other questions at all? Thank you, Ryan, for initiating the slow track.
Thanks again, guys.